Pony Express. Check out their line of penetration testing devices, including the Pwn Pad, Pwn Phone, and Pwn Pro. For enterprises, there's Pwn Pulse, providing continuous visibility into wired, Wi-Fi, and Bluetooth spectrums across all physical locations, including remote sites and branch offices. For all those hard-to-reach places, there's Pony Express. Visit them on the web at ponyexpress.com. LogRhythm's Netmon Freemium delivers real-time network visibility to quickly identify emerging threats in your IT environment. Netmon Freemium is a free commercial-grade network forensics and traffic analytics solution. You can use Netmon Freemium's powerful capabilities to search against all observed network traffic, identify abnormal traffic patterns and application usage, and quickly analyze full packet captures. Take the first step towards real-time network visibility. Visit logRhythm.com/freemium to learn more and download it today. Welcome back, everyone, to Enterprise Security Weekly. As all of us know, attackers use domains and IP addresses to launch their attacks and incorporate that in their attacks. Domain tools, they're the experts in collecting information about these domains and IP addresses and making that information available to you. Learn how to use it in your security infrastructure with their experts, Kyle and Tim. We're doing a webcast, securityweekly.com/domain tools to learn more. And now, speaking of threat intelligence, on to the stories for this week. It seems like a topic we can't escape. Threat Quotient had an article that says most threat intelligence providers just offer curated intelligence, meaning threat data has gone through an analytical process to decide what should or shouldn't be sent to the customer. In contrast, Wpac Labs offers CTAC, which gives you direct access to the raw data and allows analysts a lot of flexibility. Now, before you poo-poo this idea, if you read their article, they show you exactly how they do that. Which I thought
the step-by-step breakdown of how they did that I thought was kind of neat. It's not as cool as that vendor I shot you last week that actually showed you a GIF of the analyst actually doing it, which I thought was really cool from a marketing perspective. But the idea of a Wpac and their raw IOC offering, I could see how you really need to know what you're doing.
Yeah.
If you're going to be throwing that stuff in. I mean, how many times have we seen 8.8.8.8 show up in threat intelligence feeds as a malicious IP address because DNS backdoors are using it? So somebody that's going to be implementing this, it's kind of like the bleeding snort rules that still exist today. You want to know what you're doing before you start throwing these things in.
Yeah, and Mike is still with us from Endgame.
So Mike. Mm-hmm.
Have you looked at Threat Quotient or Wpac Labs?
I have actually. A friend of mine works over at that company, and anytime a vendor is going to be open with the data and provide you more information of what they got, I think it's better. But there is that fine line of ensuring that they can, like you mentioned, there needs to be some curated set for probably the majority of the customers that would put in a block for Google or for some other site out there. But I love more data. I love openness.
Yeah, and I think you're both correct in stating that your security program has to be pretty mature and know exactly what you're looking for inside of that data and use it effectively in your organization, which is really where the value of threat intelligence comes down to, is if you can make sense of that data easily and cheaply, then I think it's a great add-on for your security program. Alert Logic did a study and found that more than 2.2 million security incidents captured across 3,800 customers. The data shows that organizations using public cloud environments have encountered, on average, less breaches than those using their own infrastructure. So here we've talked about this and said, well, in most cases, public cloud's probably more secure. Here's a study that is squarely pointing at that and giving you some statistics.
I do like the quote at the end of this one Misha came out with. So to be fair, our data set does not conclusively prove that public clouds are more secure, if such a question can even be framed effectively or answered definitively. But we do know that within our customer base, we less frequently see malicious activity in public cloud environments. So this could very well be a case of selection bias on this part. So I'd hesitate anybody running back to work and saying, hey, we've got to move things to public cloud because it's more secure. I don't think that's wise.
Correct. Yeah, it could just be the bias in the survey as well. Although I do still, and it'd be interesting to collect the right data points to have something useful to use to say that public cloud is more secure. I haven't seen anything yet. I don't know about you guys.
Right now, these things are so mixed, it's almost impossible for me to answer that question, because we have customers that have their own IP addresses and their own NOC. They're doing their private cloud, and they have stuff up on Amazon. I don't see any pure play one company companies that are going one way and only that way. It's pretty much a heavy mix of both technologies today. So it's a very weird thing to say, I guess. Mike?
Yeah, I mean, hybrid is exactly what we see as well. Companies are testing out certain applications that make sense to be cloud-based and maintaining others in-house that are what they think to be more vulnerable. But I agree with you, like what you said earlier, that it might be selection biased. It's sort of the same challenge of, well, we think, inherently think Windows is less secure than Mac, but it's the attack the attack surface and the amount of attacks going against Windows are different than what goes against Mac. It might be the same here, where just more attacks happen to be targeted towards the organizations as opposed to towards the public cloud. I would be cautionary to make a bold statement that they might be more secure by putting your data into the cloud.
And I'll also say that as far as the cloud goes, a lot of the monitoring technologies just aren't implemented or not there yet. So it also could be an issue. You just do not have as good a data sets to deal with as far as detecting the attacks at all.
Well, and what's interesting too is the next article kind of ties into that, and it's from Twistlock. They provide container security. And, their article that basically we need to focus on the application, right? And, of course, that's self-serving to Twistlock to a certain extent. While it's still important to is secure your environment. I think what a lot of people don't realize, going back to our previous article, is that when you put something in the public cloud, that very well could be an application. And that really underscores that your job now is to secure that application. And you've kind of handed off that network and the other layers of the stack to your cloud provider. Or in this case, your container provider.
Yeah, and absolutely. In this situation, Twistlock does a lot of container security. That's kind of their claim to fame. So this is kind of a weird article from them, but it's very true. It doesn't matter how secure your Docker implementation is. If your application is complete garbage, it completely bypasses absolutely everything.
Yep.
It's a tried and true security problem, right? If I would say it's the same security problem. If I get physical access to your laptop, doesn't matter what security controls you put in place in the organization. It's the same here. Yeah, if I'm in the if you don't protect the infrastructure of the cloud and you're protecting your application, who cares? I can just get underneath it.
Yeah, and Veracode is kind of adding on to that, basically adding fuel to the fire, saying, well, new research in DevOps shows that formal education leaves developers without the necessary skills. And I think there's compounded with this problem of moving to, public cloud and balancing internal infrastructure and the focus on application security. When we do applications now in the newer DevOps model with containers and all the things we talk about and how you deploy a modern application, we're finding that there's a skills gap, not just in network and security folks, right, but also in the developers as well, which to me is kind of all things that we pointed to now is like a perfect storm for really bad things to happen.
Well, and this is one of those water is wet type moments. I mean, when has formal education ever been up to date with any technology, period? I mean, still to this day, I still have people that are in colleges and universities, and they're learning how to develop in COBOL, or God help them, Java. So you still see where this formal education is behind, and that's mainly because of the way formal education is established. It doesn't reward professors for coming up with new classes, keeping their classes up to date. It's completely built on building a class, saying it's good, and then leaving it that way for as long as possible. So this really isn't that much of a surprise, but it is surprising to hear it from Veracode, because, to be honest, they have access to far more code sets than almost anybody else on the planet. So they're probably having, like when we're talking about statistics in the data set, they probably have a really good data set to pull from.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think, and I've witnessed some of this, that the folks coming out of colleges and universities lack a lot of that real-world experience, but lack some of the necessary skills that could very well be taught in an educational environment, which is kind of frustrating, right? And it's too bad that we're not able at this point to keep up with some of the technology. And, of course, there's lots of issues there. But I also feel like that folks that want to get into this field are like, oh, yeah, I want to come out and I want to be a security analyst. Like, I want to go find the bad guys and point things out. And I'm like, have you ever installed Linux on an actual device before? And they're like, no. Like, okay, let's start there. First of all, like that's a good place to start. So, I think there's some challenges there that we've got to overcome for sure. One is that appropriate experience,
Well, I mean, if you look at the space now, at my age, as a product guy, everyone in my company is around the same age as I. There was no formal training for security when we were in school. So, again, to put why a lot of these companies might have issues in their security of their applications, it's just now starting to hit academia. And as you mentioned, the programs that were developed maybe aren't as up to speed to the current threats as they were when they were first built. It's a really difficult challenge to face, where we have an underrepresentation of people. There's maybe 1 million jobs is the deficit here in cybersecurity, and there isn't a lot of good formalized training around it. It's mostly OJT, and you have to find somewhere that'll train you.
Right. We'll train you. You can come work for us or John's companies. We'll do that. We'll do that. Come work with us. We have job openings actually. You can visit our careers page and you can find out how to get involved with that. Please, we need help.
Us. Please help.
While we're small, everyone gets a Raspberry Pi. Everyone has to install Linux and do something with a Raspberry Pi. That's like step one. Let's see. ServiceNow has launched Trusted Security Circles. And I believe this is an effort to be able to share data. So to share and receive, get this, hyper-relevant threat intelligence in near real time. And of course, I think it's, speaking to ServiceNow's play into the security realm. But largely, I think it is about the sharing that we were talking about before with IOCs and threat information.
See, the whole time I read this entire article, I was it's kept going around in my head. How many circles are there? Do they have 9 circles?
Is it like the circle of trust, like in the movie?
You can have the circle of trust, or you can have the 9 circles of hell. Yeah. I don't know. Trusted security circles? So I kind of got lost and never read the rest of the article.
No worries. We can just move on. It's fine.
I like how Paul doesn't even question that. He's like, all right, moving on then.
Moving on. Plenty of stuff to talk about, such as the best practices for privileged access management. So all you need to do is discover all shared admin, user application and service accounts, SSH keys, database accounts, cloud and social media accounts, and other privileged accounts, including those used by third parties or vendors. And
Black Hills Information Security would love to help you do that.
Yes. That's easy, right? That's all you need to do.
I'm
a math major by trade, and when I was finishing my degree, when you would write out a proof, you would just get to a certain point, you just put ... get to the next step, and skip over major chunks that you didn't want to describe. Yeah. It's sort of the same thing here. We'll just get to the part that we know how to do, and we'll just assume you can do the easy part, discovering all the problems that happen in your network.
Right.
And I think that's all pretty much self-explanatory at this point. So, the idea of privileged access management, so this has been something we've been wrestling with. Well, we absolutely love Beyond Trust. We love Yaffe and the team. And I think that technology is solid. It does you no good at all if you have an Excel spreadsheet that has all of your sensitive passwords to systems that you can't install the privileged access management on. And we see that all of the time. And they're on open shares that anyone can access. So it's kind of strange how many organizations put up these tremendous security controls, and then they basically leave the equivalent of the back door unlocked and wide open.
It's very true.
It's that shiny syndrome, the shiny new object. One of the newest trends is deception technology, which I think is awesome. But the people that are looking into that don't have basic security, like you mentioned. They don't even encrypt their databases or have some network security in place. So it's hard to get them to focus on the foundation, which maybe isn't sexy and fun. Meanwhile, there's this great new technology they can go, I can go put a honeypot in, and I can see where people are going. Well, how does that help you?
Hey, look, we got the honeypot, and we just found out that they pulled down an Excel spreadsheet with all of our admin passwords on it. Oh, crap.
Some things are much easier to accomplish, and I'd put this next space kind of in that realm. On Hack Naked News this week, we talked about a Juniper vulnerability that is over a year-old vulnerability in PHP that was embedded in one of their products. It turns out there's a pretty easy way, and vendors out there to help you. Flexera is just one of them, and they've updated one of their products and put out an announcement that essentially lets you find those problems like outdated and unsupported software inside of your software base that you're using in your products. Apparently, Juniper doesn't use one of these products or use it effectively, or it's not implemented in all areas, as is something we see very commonly in security, as we were just talking about with privileged access management. And I've seen companies pay out bug bounties because there was an old version of something inside of their code and ends up in one of their production releases and never gets fixed. And this is I have to believe, something that's really easy to identify and fix. And there are actually vendors that can help you with that and go and identify these flaws inside of your software. They hook into your repository, and Flexera is one of them. Why don't more companies do this? I don't get it.
No idea.
But if I'll put my product manager hat on and outside, not the security hat, but the product manager hat, and say that, the unfortunate world is that a lot of companies are fast tracking to get releases out the door, and there's a prioritized list of things, and maybe the new feature that's going to bring them revenue is above the security flaw that they found. And unless you have the right culture or the right team, they won't. I'll to keep touting endgame here, but the culture we have and the people we have, obviously with our leadership, ensures that isn't the case. But there are a lot of companies that have to, either they're public reporting to the board or they have to bring revenue in to survive, and they're going to focus on things that bring them money as opposed to things that are, I guess, relatively viewed as lost leaders for security patches and others.
Yeah, no, that's likely the case with Juniper, of course, being a public company, right?
Mm-hmm.
A couple of announcements for Amazon Web Services, AWS. McAfee has announced a feature set and product for AWS, and AWS itself has added some security tools. Where do you guys fall on like add-on tools and what Amazon is adding natively to the AWS platform?
God, there's so many tools right now that do so much testing. And we've noticed that a lot of the tools that are doing security checks of like the way you've implemented Lambda, for example, like what was the company we were just talking about? I was talking about
Flexera.
Before that. We were talking about they were doing application security is important before you start getting to talk. Well, at any rate.
Oh, Twistlock, yeah.
Twistlock, that's right. So you have all of these different vendors out there, and what we're finding out is they maybe do one part of cloud-based security well, and right now everybody's all over the place. I do think probably the best thing that you could do, and I could be wrong on this, is just sit back if you're working with Amazon and wait for Amazon to release a toolkit or work with a lot of the open source toolkits that are out there right now. Just because the Amazon tools tend to be a lot better thought out. They have a lot more understanding of what's going on underneath the hood than it is just jumping from one vendor to another vendor to another vendor trying to get a tool installed. Because there's just so many different places to look. There's so many different tools out there, and they're all checking different things. So it's going to be a while before we get this locked down.
I agree. Rackspace deploys Risk IQ. I didn't actually look at this story, John. I don't know if you did. It's one of my
let's skip it.
Bonus stories. I think that rounds out the news. So with that,
we just know that there's somebody at Rackspace is like, they're talking about my article.
The article's in the show notes, wiki.securityweekly.com. This is episode 57 of Enterprise Security Weekly. You can go check out all of the articles we talk about in all of our shows at that location. Right now, we're going to take a short break, come back. We're going to talk about my IOC enchanting quadrants. Stay tuned.